Welcome back to the Imperfect Podcast. I have been so excited about this episode, and I feel like I say that about every episode, but this one, honestly, I am so excited for. This week's special guest is one of the sweetest people I have ever met, Ms. Chloe Henkel. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. I am doing all right. I've been doing homework all day, but I guess that's pretty usual.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I am 17 years old. I'm an author and an artist. I have written 2 poetry books, written and published. I also do editing and formatting for other people's work. And that's kind of what I do as far as main work stuff. I also love animals and all that stuff, and have a lot of other artistic hobbies. I really love art and love writing and love incorporating all those things together.
I love Chloe's artwork and all of her work, really, and you can find it on her multiple Instagram pages, which of course I will link in this video. But Chloe is just an amazing human being, and I'm so excited to be talking with her. So I want to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about the 2 books that you've written and released and kind of what they're about, if there's anyone specifically that it was to, or, all the fun stuff.
Okay, so my first book, Paper Scraps, is divided into 2 sections. The first one is called The Fog and the second one's called The Stars. And it's really just about negative emotions and sadness and stuff. The fog is, and it's about feeling uncertain and just all of that kind of thing. And then the stars is about guiding yourself out of that fog and finding light, finding hope, finding happiness in spite of all of that. And that definitely, I don't directly say it in the book, but that was definitely influenced by my personal experiences with an anxiety disorder and with depression that I was dealing with a lot at that time. So I kind of drew from those experiences of just writing about my personal emotions. And my second book, Love is a Distinct Possibility, is love and heartbreak poems, which I have always loved writing and never ever shared. You'll notice in my first book, there's 1 poem that is kind of a love poem, and that's it. Both because I always thought oh, it's so embarrassing to admit that you are super romantic and to talk about that kind of stuff. I always thought that was really embarrassing and overly personal. And I was really scared that people were gonna think it was about them.
Right.
So I still really liked writing them and just had a lot that I got over time. And at some point I was like, you know what? I want to share these anyway, and put them on that book. And I even say in the book that they're not about any one particular person because I really didn't want anyone thinking that.
Right.
There definitely are poems that are about real experiences, or where I think if certain people read them, they would know oh yeah, that one was definitely about this experience with me. But generally, as anything that was really overly personal, I changed enough that nobody would know and nobody would know about it. I definitely don't want it to be oh, I'm exposing anybody. But there definitely were poems from real experiences, just things that really stuck with me. Right. So yes and no.
Yeah.
As far as certain people, but they're about real life.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I love about your work, but also something that we kind of have in common, is everything that we do, there's always a reason for it, and there's always that backstory, and I think that's something that I really admire about your work.
I love that. And it's same with your songs and stuff. You can totally hear, I feel when you listen to some songs, it's oh, that person definitely had that experience, because you couldn't have written it that accurately if you hadn't.
Yeah. And actually, guys, this song hasn't been released yet, but I am working on a project called We the Authors, which is a little EP that I've been working on. And every song on the EP is inspired by something that was written by someone I know. And the first song that I ever wrote for that EP was actually inspired by one of Chloe's poems called Long Nights. And it's honestly one of my favorites. So keep an ear out for that, because that will be coming in the near future. I'm not sure when, but the song's written and I love it.
I will say that I am so excited for that one. And because you let me hear that song when you wrote it, like you sent it to me and said, like, what do you think of this? You know, you can listen to it. And I have listened to it so many times. And it's so funny because I don't know if I'm like the only person who you sent it to, but I'm like, I just know she's going to look at this and be like, who watched this private video 100 times? But it's just so good. And I love the way you wrote it.
Thank you.
I can say that if the rest of the songs on it or anything like that, it's going to be really good.
Thank you. I'm really, really excited about it. And it was really cool because, you know, I reached out to some people. I just threw it out on my story, and a lot of people who I had no idea wrote things reached out to me, and the things that they write are just so incredible. So that's one thing that I thought was really, really cool about this project, is that I got to see that side of people that, you know, you don't see when you're passing them in the hallway. So it was like really, really cool to see that side of people.
Yeah, that is such a cool thing, like getting to read people's writing. And some people just write things that you would never imagine coming from them.
And I feel like people are so vulnerable when they're writing things, especially things like poems and like short stories. I feel like people can be so vulnerable. So the fact that like those people reached out to me and gave me that work was just so incredible. And I feel like if I read those things with a blind eye and had no idea who the author was, I never would have placed it with those people. But I mean, people are capable of incredible things, and you know, you don't know it until you ask, you know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally.
Yeah. Okay. So I did want to ask you, why did you pick poetry as opposed to any other style of writing?
This is interesting because I love other styles of writing too, and I hope to write, I hope to write books in all different styles. I love writing nonfiction books, fiction books, novels. Like, I love writing in general, but poetry just kind of happened for me. Like, it wasn't like I sat down and said, I'm going to write a book of poems. I just started jotting down poetry in like the notes app of my phone. Like, I was literally just a notes app poet who, when I had a thought or a line that I thought was really cool, I would just jot it down. And eventually I just had like hundreds of these poems sitting around, and it just made me think, wouldn't it be cool if I could put all these into a book? So it really just started with, that was what I was writing without even having a particular intention for it. I also just love poetry because it's short. You can get a short, relatable message across without having to write a whole story just to convey one message. And I have kind of a short attention span at times. So I like being able to just write something when I have the thought and have the inspiration for it, and then it's like there and it's done.
Yeah.
So.
No, I definitely agree with that. I definitely think, like, if I tried to sit down and write a book, I wouldn't get anywhere. Like, I don't think I'd get past, like, maybe the first 10 pages. I feel like when I would be writing, I'd sum it up. I would summarize the whole book in, like, a chapter, and I'd be like, well, I don't know where else to go with this. So, yeah, I definitely think poetry, I feel like it's so beautiful because of how short it is. And, you know, sometimes you have to, like, read between the lines and look deeper into the poem to really figure out what it means. And that's a part of poetry that I think is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that where you can sit and look over a single poem for hours and find different stuff and analyze it and write about it, even if it's just like a few lines. And if you're feeling really inspired, like, poetry can be way longer. I also love verse novels where people write entire novels, but it's in poetic verse. That I think
really
is cool because you can move the plot along differently and stuff, but poetry can be as long or as short as you want it, which I think is really cool for getting ideas across.
Yeah, it's so versatile. I love it. So, I know this is a question that I get a lot about, my music and how I released it. But I mean, I'm even curious. How did the process work for you to release your books?
Ooh, okay, so this is a good question because it's so different for everybody. But I decided to self-publish. So basically what I did is I so far have used Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing, which is not actually just for Kindles or just for ebooks. Like you make paperback books with it too. But I signed up for an account and got all the banking information and stuff sorted out on there. And then basically, once you've signed up for an account and you have your payment information where they can pay you and stuff, what you have to do from there is upload the manuscript, upload the cover, write the title, just fill out the information, and you can hit publish. That said, the really hard part is not publishing it, like self-publishing it. It's formatting the manuscript, at least in my opinion. And what you have to do for that, I did it in Microsoft Word, and you have to make your pages the right size. Then you put the words in the font that you want them, size that you want them, right place on the page. You have to put the page numbers, page headings, all that stuff. Like you have to format the book pages so that when you upload it and send it to the self-publishing place, they can print it. Like they'll press print and their machine will make a book and they'll look right. So kind of like when you're printing out pages on your own printer, if you have text too close to the edge of the page or your color ink isn't right or anything else, it might print wrong. So you have to make sure to format it so that it'll print correctly and edit it and make sure it's all exactly how you want it. And then you just upload it to the self-publishing site and tell them you want to publish it. You can order proof copies first to see what it'll look like. And once you like it and it's solid, then you just hit publish and they make it available for anybody to buy online.
That's so cool. And I'm going to plug your books right now. Guys, both of Chloe's books are on Amazon. And what are they? One's $10 and one's, how much
14.
is the other one? 14.
14.
So they're not overly expensive. They're great books. I read them all the time, like right before bed. It's a great way to just, settle down after a long day of schoolwork. So yes, please check her out. I love Chloe, and I'm not going to stop saying that because she's so amazing.
Thank you.
So how did
Seriously.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that you have been like one of the first people to get both of my books and have been really supportive. I appreciate that.
Guys, and I bought 2 copies of Chloe's first book, and I put one of them in, there's like, those like birdhouse library things that people can just like drop their books off and you can like pick one up, whatever. My old elementary school has one of those in their parking lot, and I put your copy of your first book. I put paper scraps in there. So if you go to Red Pump Elementary, go pick yourself up a copy because it's chilling in there. Someone probably already took it though, but yeah.
That's so cool though.
So I wanted to ask you, how did you find your cover art? Like, how did you design that? Did you draw it? Walk me through that.
Yes. So my first book, I just drew the cover. It was the flower on the cover. It's a buttercup, which is actually my favorite kind of flower. And it was a big pen and ink drawing that then I colored in with watercolor paint. And then I scanned it in on the computer. My dad is a graphic designer and he helped me with it. And we just downloaded a cover template, which they have on whatever self-publishing site you choose to use. They'll offer cover templates for your size book. So we downloaded a cover template and just put that art, cut it out like on the computer and put it on the cover. And I just knew that I wanted it to be like that bright, like robin's egg kind of blue color. And so we just put that in the background. So we designed it on the computer in Photoshop. And my second book, I did a little bit differently. but kind of the same thing. Downloaded a cover template, and then I actually used photos of my own hands because the cover of the second book is two hands, like one reaching towards the other one from the top, one reaching up towards the bottom, or from the bottom. And I used pictures of my own hands and just put them on the cover. And then using something kind of like Photoshop, but it was Microsoft Paint because I have a Windows computer. I sketched over them with the brush tool and made them into an outline and then just colored in the background all on the computer in like a basic graphic design program.
That's so cool. I had no idea those are your hands.
Yeah,
That is
I actually
so
did. I
cool.
used photos. And I
That's
have
so
like
cool.
where I saved the cover in progress and there's pictures of it like half done. So like half of it is my hand and half of it is painted over.
That is so cool. Yeah, I know for me, when I released my song, there's a website called TuneCore. And so, I made an account through them, and then all you had to do after that was just upload your MP3 file and then your cover art. And I know a lot of people ask me, where I got my picture for it. And fun fact, that picture was taken in the road right in front of my house. It was taken like just in the street. And my mom took it, and then I put a crap ton of filters on it to make it look all indie and cool. And
My
yeah.
my author photo for my first book, my mom took, and I did like a whole little photo shoot out in the yard. And in my author photo, if you look at it, I'm laying down like in the grass on the leaves. It's really pretty. But right after we took that photo, a spider, like about half the size of my hand, crawled over my leg because I was laying down in the leaves. And I screamed, I got up and I said, okay, we're done. I hope we have a good picture because I'm done.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Yeah.
It was like easily like 50 degrees when I was taking that picture. It was like right before, like I think it was the week before Easter, but it was so cold, and I was out there in a dress, just chilling in the road, and all of my neighbors were looking at me, and I was like, I'm gonna be done in like 10 seconds, but it was like bitterly cold. I wasn't ready for it.
Oh my gosh, that's my brother and I's graduation pictures. It just reminded me of that because we were standing on this really scenic bridge that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And a big truck came like barreling down the road and stopped behind us and was like beeping. We're like, okay, I
That's
guess
so
that's
funny.
over.
I love it when life just decides to interrupt your photo shoots.
Yeah.
So, what was the biggest inspiration for your poems? Or I guess what is the biggest inspiration for your poems?
Just whatever I feel strongly about, they all come from strong feelings that I just want to talk about. And it can be anything. It can be feeling really happy, really upset, really anxious, whatever. It's just emotions that I am like a really sensitive person. I'm a highly sensitive, like really can be a really anxious person, really sensitive person. And just feeling these emotions and wanting to define them, wanting to define them and let people relate to them. And I can't really say it's like any one specific experience, but it's just the experience of trying to learn more about what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, how other people relate to that. And that's just the important thing for me is the feelings involved.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a big thing for me too. Like I said earlier, like you and I, we always have a reason behind everything we write. Um, and I feel like when I decided that like I wanted to release music, I decided that every song was gonna have a purpose. So what I try to do is I either write a story and like base my song off of the story, like kind of what I did with your poem. I had that to base it off of, um, or I take something that happened in my life and either just write a song about it or over exaggerate very much and then write a very dramatic like breakup song about, you know, the relationship that I never had but almost had kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I write things that I know other people can relate to. So I think that is a great tactic, but also like a great inspiration.
I totally relate to that. Like, there's definitely times where I take like a really tiny moment and end up writing a lot about it. Like, I remember this one time, like, that just made me think of this one specific instance that I met this person. It was like this girl who seemed really nice and was like really pretty and was so cool. And I was like, and then we didn't like talk again or whatever for the rest of the night. It was at some party. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, it's people, you know, like someone like that I could be best friends with if we happened to run into each other again, and we didn't. And then I thought about how there's so many people like that that we run into once and then never run into again. And I ended up writing like a whole dramatic poem about this random girl who I wasn't even friends with and like didn't even know and would never have guessed that I was writing about her.
Yeah. I think it's really cool how like the stories that are made when we kind of blow things like that out of proportion. Like I remember I wrote this song like a long time ago, but it was like I was like maybe 12 and I wrote this breakup song as if I was in a relationship, and it was so dramatic. It was like, you broke my heart, I'll never be the same person again, all this stuff. And I was like, girl, you've never done more than hug a guy. I was like, who do you think you're talking to? But, you know, it was, I remember, it was this guy kissed my hand because of a dare, right? And I thought it was like the greatest thing ever, but I was also very scared. I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get in trouble, because, you know, I was like, we're making purple, you know, because like blue and pink. I was like, this is so not okay. It was fine. We were like 10 and no one cared, but I really thought like my world was gonna end because I was getting too attached and all this stuff.
And you like totally have those feelings at the time though, and I think that's the important thing, is how you feel about it and what your feelings are, because even if nobody else is going to understand why that experience is important or relate to that, they're gonna understand the underlying feelings because we've all had those.
Right. And that's what I love about, you know, what we do is we know we're relating to people because, you know, we all have those feelings, and I think that's super, super cool, is that we can relate with people through doing what we love. And I think that's something that not a lot of people can say that they can do, but I think that's so cool that we can both do that. So who is your biggest inspiration when it comes to writing and expressing yourself?
This is hard because there's so many. Like, there's so many authors who inspire me, because I've always loved reading, and I'll like read certain authors and think, I want to be able to write like that. I want to be better. Like, this is why I write. And there's a lot of authors that make me feel like that. A lot of classics, as well as like Stephen King, which probably sounds weird because I'm like a pretty poet, but I love Stephen King. I love Bridget DeVoe and a lot of other more modern poets. I love a lot of classics. F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby is a book that like always makes me want to be a better writer, and they inspire me to want to do what they do. There's also just a lot of people in real life who, like my family, who have just supported me and like encouraged me to do art and inspire me in that way. Or like my therapist, who has really just inspired me to talk about my feelings and express them and do that kind of thing and inspire me to become a better person. So a lot of people play into that inspiration in totally different ways.
I love that. You know, I never really thought of like family or, you know, a therapist being an inspiration. Like whenever I'm asked this question, my head goes straight to like, oh yeah, you know, Adele and Katy Perry and, you know, all these, you know, famous people you hear on the radio. But, you know, when you think about it, having that support system makes creating so much easier. Like, I can't imagine, what I would be doing right now if my parents, didn't buy me a microphone for Christmas, or, didn't allow me to, get together with this new producer I've been working with. It's just having that foundation of, positive energy surrounding you is so important when it comes to stuff like this.
It totally makes a difference. And that's kind of why that question always trips me up, because I'm like, everything inspires me. Everyone inspires me. Like, I don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm. I feel like even the haters. I know everyone's like, oh yeah, I love my haters because, they encourage me to, do better and all this stuff. And as cliche as that sounds, it's so true. I mean,
It is.
Even the people who like aren't supportive or, call out your insecurities or your flaws, like, they actually help. And the fact that they're paying attention to you means you're doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, like, everything, just like negativity, positivity, people who hurt me, people who are still around, art museums, the sunset, like literally anything is an inspiration in some way.
Yeah. I've never thought of it that way. You've just opened my eyes to a whole new world. Thank you, Chloe. So, speaking of, everyone inspiring you, what are the types of things that you hope to accomplish with your poems?
So many things. I definitely want to give to other people the feeling that other authors have given to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to read my stuff and feel inspired, feel different, feel like they are understood for once, feel like they can be distracted from whatever's going on in their life. Like, everything that I rely so heavily on books for, I want to give that to other people. And I want to make change in a positive way. Like, there's so many things that I just want to do with my writing for other people. I also hope to get more people reading my stuff, just reach more people with it, and see how that impacts other people's lives, talk to other people about it. I want to make a difference in the writing scene, in poetry, and just in people's lives in some way.
And I think it's really cool that you're so young and you've already got 2 books out. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't you also, been to elementary schools and done book talks?
Yes, I went to my old middle school actually and talked to a lot of people. Like, I just talked to all the grade levels of students. So I talked to all the students in small groups, like over the course of 4 days. And that's one thing, if you ever want to get book talks or gigs or whatever, I totally recommend, because teachers love being able to give something like that to their students with like a local performer or artist or author or whatever. And if you can get in touch, what I did is got in touch with an old teacher at the school who knew me really well and could vouch for me as a person, and tell them that like I'd be a good person to come in and talk to students. And then I got to talk to all the students there just about writing and about what I do and about how you sell your work, how you make books, what personal experiences I've had. Like, I got to have really cool conversations with all the kids, and it was so, so fun.
That's so awesome. I remember when I did, like open mic nights and stuff like that. And like the feeling of just, the people smiling at you and clapping and nodding, it's like, you're doing something right. And, even if they don't really understand completely why you're doing what you're doing or, what exactly you're doing, they're proud of you. Even if, like, that they don't say it, like, they're proud of you. And I feel like that feeling is just so overwhelming in the best way possible.
I think my favorite part of the whole experience was when I was talking to a group of 7th graders. And I told them how when I first started sharing my work, I was really nervous about it and really self-conscious. And one of the kids raised their hands during questions and said, how do you get over that? How do you get over feeling too scared to share your stuff and feeling embarrassed and self-conscious of yourself? And that was like, that just blew me away because at 13, I would not have been brave enough to ask that question in front of my class. And the whole group, and we as a group got to have a really honest, open conversation about insecurities and about building your confidence. And it was just so cool because it was so unexpected, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that was my favorite part of it because I got to have that unique experience with them and meet some really brave, cool kids.
Yeah, and now you have that connection with them, and I feel like that's something that they're never gonna forget.
Yeah, I have
And
a lot of them
yeah,
have like followed me and still send me messages and stuff.
that's so cool. And you also have a YouTube channel as well, correct?
Yes, I post a lot of like stuff on my writing process and on my books and like spoken word poetry and stuff, book recommendations, that kind of thing. I also do work with other authors, and I have formatted and edited so far 2 other books of other authors who decided to publish their work, and I help them do that. So
That
I'm
is
also
so
doing
cool.
that now. I'm like formatting and editing for other people,
That's
which is
so
really
cool.
fun.
So I know you have been talking about formatting and all of that stuff, and you talked about how earlier you kind of just write down, a thought as soon as you get it. But what does your writing process look like from, start to finish?
Start is just writing down stuff whenever I think of it. And no matter how bad it is or whatever, I just write it. I write it, and then it's there. And I leave it there. From there, when I'm going to put stuff into an actual book, I weed through it, edit stuff, fix it, make it better. Some stuff I decide not to include and weed out. Then I put it all in an email because I have it on my phone usually or in a notebook. I email it to myself so I can open it on my computer, copy and paste it all into a Word document. From there, I open up another Word document that is going to be the book and has like the right page size and everything, and just start copying and pasting poems each onto their own page. And then I space it out, make it look good on the pages, read them, put them in the order I want, like just put it together like a puzzle is kind of the whole start to finish process. And then I'll have other people read it, order physical copies of the book to look at. I write right on them and make tons of edits. It's just writing is the easy part. Everything else is the part that you do for the writing.
Yeah.
Even though it's really hard.
I think that's so cool, though, that you have such a grasp on this whole concept and process at 17. I still can't get over that.
It has taken so much time and so many online tutorials.
I bet.
To figure out how to do it. Which is why I also love that I can like offer that service to other people now, because it totally does pay off now that I can do it.
That's how I feel with music too. And I feel like as I'm getting into this more, I'm realizing just how long recording takes. Because, words, I recorded that in my mom's closet. Because that was like the most soundproof place in my house. Like I had my microphone set up and I recorded in her closet. And then I sent it over to my friend. He mixed it. It took like maybe like a month. Maybe not even like a month to get that song completely finished. But, now I have like, I think it was like 13 songs in the making. And,
that's cool.
Like the studio where I'm going to be recording, it's not finished yet, but we have plans of getting like all live instruments, and it's going to be just this whole great thing. And I'm going to be the first artist, I guess you could say, that's going to be recording in there. But I'm kind of nervous because like in my mom's closet, I could, delete tracks and start over whenever I wanted. And now there's going to be a whole band behind me. So it's really nerve-wracking, but I feel like even though it's going to be nerve-wracking and time-consuming, it's going to be so worth it in the end. And I'm just so excited to hear like the final products of these songs.
Oh, absolutely. Like that is going to be so, so cool.
So how have you benefited from your writing?
Wow. Okay, there's so many ways. I think one of the main things is just finding out that other people like it and other
Mm-hmm.
people can relate to it has made me feel better about about the way that I'm writing and just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it is something I can do and knowing that other people can relate to the things that I'm thinking and the things that are going on in my life and inside my head. Definitely benefited from that, and just getting to connect with other writers is
Mm-hmm.
one of the coolest things in the world, and I love having had that opportunity too.
Yeah.
So there's just been a lot of that, and just that it's something that I love to do so much.
I love that. And I think like for me especially when I was doing like my weekly covers and stuff like that, the fact that I was being more open about singing and everything and like posting more on my Instagram page. But the fact that the artist that I covered actually like reached out to me and either commented or just liked it or like put me on their story and stuff like that, that was the coolest thing. I cannot tell you. Walker Burroughs was my favorite, okay? I was up at midnight when he answered me, right? We had a full blown conversation about college and everything because he goes to my dream college. And he was like,
Oh,
you should
wow.
definitely go into music therapy and all this stuff. And that's my plan now is to go to Belmont and to be a music therapist. That's my goal. But like, I don't know, just getting that advice from someone that I think so highly of was a life changing experience. Like, I'm never going to forget it. It's probably one of the greatest days of my life. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it was really, really cool. And, I think sometimes I assume that people who are a lot more well known than I am are just not going to respond. So then getting that
Mm-hmm.
little notification that it was like, oh, this person liked your video, this person commented, it literally meant the world to me. And it was the coolest thing. And knowing that, they're further along in this process, but still like not as big as, like Ariana Grande or whatever. It's so cool because I know that they've been in my place, and the fact that like they're willing to give me that publicity and help me out and support me is the greatest thing in the world.
Two of my favorite poets, my one, Greenthorn, followed me on Instagram, at which point I was just like freaked out.
No
And
way.
at that point, I actually messaged her and was like, hey, I really love your stuff. I noticed she commented on one of my poems that was in my most recent book. And I said, if you ever see this, I'd love to send you a copy of my book if you'll read it. Like, I'll send you a free copy. Like, I'd love to just hear what you think of it. And I sent it to her. Like, she said yes. She sent me her address. I sent it to her. And she said she loved it. She called it a work of art.
Oh,
And she
Chloe.
posted about it, like, on her story and stuff. And it was one of the coolest things ever.
That's so exciting.
And one of my other favorites, Suri Singh, I designed a book cover for his upcoming book. He really liked my art. I've done art for him that he's posted on his Instagram. And so he wanted me to design his book cover.
Chloe, that is so cool.
It
Oh
is
my
really cool.
gosh.
I'm so excited for it.
Oh my
And the
goodness.
funny thing is, he wanted this one piece that I did on it that was like a poem on top of a bunch of lipstick kisses.
Yeah.
And he said, I really like however you did that. I don't know how you made that. I had actually made that piece like with actual lipstick by like kissing the paper. So I had to kiss the paper about 30 times to do his book cover, and my actual lips are going to be on it. So,
That is so cool. It's the
but yeah,
things.
so it's cool.
That is so
But yeah, it's stuff
awesome.
like that that if you like take a chance and reach out to those people sometimes, like you'll be surprised.
Right.
And I think that was a really cool thing to learn.
Yeah. So I think our last question that's going to wrap us up today is what advice would you give anyone who is starting the same path that you're taking?
There are so many things. I think on the more practical side, I'll start with that and then get into the more like emotional stuff. I think the practical side I would say is look up tutorials. I watched so many online tutorials as far as like book formatting and that kind of thing. And if you don't know what you're doing, just look it up. And it'll be frustrating sometimes trying to learn how to do new stuff, but look it up, try it again. Online tutorials websites are really helpful, and just reaching out to people who have done it before, asking them how to do it. Just even when the practical stuff gets frustrating, keep going, keep working on it. As far as the more like mental, emotional side, write what you feel passionately about, write what you really feel, and it's going to come off way more genuine and going to impact people more. And I will say, because this is something that I personally struggled with, and I mentioned earlier when I was talking about this at the middle school, if you're having trouble with confidence or having trouble just not being sure if your writing is very good or your art or whatever it is you're doing, because I would always think, oh my gosh, I would constantly think it's not good enough. I'm not good enough. I can't do this because I'm not good enough. And two main things helped me get through that. And the first one was just feeling like my words were important enough to me that I wanted to share them, even if nobody else liked them. And I think the other thing that really helped me was whenever I would think that something I did or something that I wrote wasn't good enough, I look at it and try to figure out why I think that. Because if I think for a certain poem, oh, it's too short, it's too long, I don't like that word, then I can just change that. And then it should be good enough or whatever for me. And if I can't come up with a reason except that, oh, well, I did it, it's me, it's whatever I'm doing, so it just can't be good enough, then you just kind of have to realize, oh, wait, that's just a negative thought and it's not rational if there's literally no reason that I can think of that it's true. Yeah. But yeah, I would just say getting over the insecurity, getting past that and finding stuff that you're willing to share anyway, that like, if it's important enough to you, just go for it.
Yeah, that is so awesome. So typically, I leave us all on a good note, and I think your response to that can count as our good note. So guys, make sure if you are going for something that you love, let your love be the driving force. At the end of the day, you don't have to live for anyone else, you know? Gotta please yourself. You come first. So, do what you love. Do what makes you happy. I love you guys so much. Thank you, Chloe, for joining me. I am in love with this episode. I'm so happy.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a new experience.
Yeah, of course. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.